Good morning, everyone. Kris here with Inspired Energy, joining me again this morning. Hartwell. Good morning, Hartwell.
Good morning, Kris. Good morning, everyone.
Yes. So we're continuing our journey with the codon rings, and today we're starting part one of the Ring of Life and Death. Ooh, that sounds kind of ominous. So it's made up, you say, of gates 42, 3, 27, 24, 23, and 20. So we'll try and get as far as we can today, and then we'll do the rest next week, I guess. So maybe you can start off and tell us about Gene Key 42.
Sure, Kris. This is in the sacral center. Its associated amino acid is leucine. And this is about the journey from expectation to celebration via the way of detachment. All these fancy big words, and yet they tap so deeply into our regular experiences. 42 is the experience of getting trapped into a perception of life or a state in life where you think about where you're always expecting something,
Mm-hmm.
and your expectations are always being disappointed. And expecting things is in a sense a subtle way of trying to control them. We don't trust life, and so we invest in it in a certain way. We expect this outcome, we expect that outcome. And deep and buried in this is the awareness that everything dies. That in the language of philosophy and physics, life goes from a state of greater potential to a greater lesser potential. The universe is running down. The law of entropy.
It sounds like cycles to me, like
Yeah. And when I was reading this, it sounded very much like the Saturn, the cycle of Saturn in its 7-year. Saturn cycle is 28 years, so a quarter of that is 7, and it felt very much like that.
Mm-hmm.
So in regards to the expectations we hold in life, we often get trapped in this failure cycle. We think in terms of success, we think in terms of failure, and it actually blocks us from being in the flow of life, because we're always having this grasping onto with our expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we raise our vibration above the level of fear, remember, we're seeing this over and over again, and it's obviously the theme that's most prevalent. Fear equals distrust in life.
Mm-hmm.
Distrust in life equals fear. If you don't trust life, you're fearful. As we move into love, as we move into a greater sense of trust, we come to the gift of detachment.
Mm.
And we get afraid that detachment will mean that we don't feel things, or maybe that's what it would mean.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean that.
It's just the outcome. You're not attached to whatever the outcome is. You're still, going to go through life and have feelings and emotions and all of that, but it's just being removed from what the result of whatever you're looking at will be, right?
Yeah. We've dropped that sense of expectation.
Mm-hmm.
So true detachment means to yield to everything and to feel everything absolutely. It's to let go of control over your life physically, mentally, and emotionally.
Mm.
There's a beautiful quotation here from Richard Rudd, which I felt might be useful and
Mm-hmm.
valuable to share. The gift of detachment represents the separating out process between the emotions and the mind. And it takes place naturally as the frequency passing through this gene key rises. With detachment comes both understanding and healing. There's a great understanding and freedom that comes to every human being who surrenders deeply enough to their life. You learn to accept your own mortality and the intricate flow of events around you. With detachment, you become truly centered in your own being.
And being present.
Yes, your own being, which God created.
Yeah. Which.
And then you begin to maybe perhaps be accessible to the highest expression of this, the gene
Mm-hmm.
key 42, which is celebration.
Mm-hmm.
It's like breaking through, the rising plane, breaking
Mm-hmm.
above the level of the clouds,
Beautiful.
and, it's about transcending fear of death.
Mm-hmm.
Um, even as you're aware that everything dies,
Yeah.
and then it's kind of like you get the joke, you get the
Yeah.
punchline, and all of a sudden celebration arises in that
Mm-hmm.
moment. Oh my God, this is the story. This is how it's going.
This is a movie, and I'm just a little actor playing in it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and now I get it, and it's
Yeah.
so hilarious. So, I mean, I don't, looking at it that I kind of get it. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
don't get all of these. I mean, these
Mm-hmm.
are cities we're talking about. These are gifts.
Mm-hmm.
Many of us struggle even to get above the level of the shadow, but
Mm-hmm.
something in that speaks to me.
Yeah.
You know, we have
So
flashes of awareness that take us out.
yeah, we kind of go in and out of everything until it's like a slow evolution right up a ladder. You take a couple rungs up and then you go back a little. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Hmm.
get a taste.
Yeah.
You get a
So.
taste in your peak moments of these, and hold on to those tastes.
Hmm. So.
That's part of what my own wisdom is like. Hold on to the tastes that I've experienced.
Hmm. So shall we move on to Gene Key 3? This one's
Sure.
fun.
Yeah. Now the 3 is about seeing through the eyes of the child. It's down there
Hmm.
also in the solar plexus, pointing to the root, and it's the journey from chaos to innocence via the way of innovation. Again, all of these are the amino acid leucine. But here in chaos, the shadow frequency of 3, what we're seeing here is that experience that we all have in the face of nature or the infinite. When you're out in the middle of the wilderness, you really have that feeling of things being chaotic. There's a rule, there's an order to life, but there's a sense of being powerless in the face of the immensity of nature, for instance. If
Hmm.
you've ever been on the open sea or, in the wilderness with nobody around, there's that feeling of, oh, I'm really small. you
Hmm.
know, and it's like I am not outside of that order of living and dying, and
Hmm.
there's a feeling that comes out of that sense of smallness.
Hmm.
And we try that feeling of chaos has prompted our great attempts at explanation. Science being one of those great attempts to
Hmm.
save us from that feeling of chaos. Let's appease the gods.
Hmm.
And sorry, I skipped. That's the religion side. Let's appease the gods, right?
Hmm.
Or the science side. Let's figure everything out. So maybe then if we figure everything out, then we can control it.
Hmm.
So there is that feeling of chaos or helplessness or smallness in the face of the immensity of nature. Um, and there's that feeling of the need to survive.
Hmm.
Um, but what we realize here is that what gets us trapped is our own thinking. It's our own thinking that corrupts the data, so to speak, within our own DNA and keeps our frequency low.
Hmm. And this is created from all of those programs that we take on from the world, right? So instead of just letting that gate be and operate the way it's meant to.
Yes. I mean, if we could trust in the chaos, then we would allow ourselves to be mutated by the forces around us, and we would adapt.
Hmm.
Magic would happen.
Hmm.
And magic does happen in many of our lives. Let's not
Hmm.
forget that. It does happen. Um, But every one of these is, in a way, ways that we do not trust, ways that we do not love.
Mm-hmm.
And the chaos is our way of, we latch onto belief systems or science to help us deal with our sense of helplessness.
Mm-hmm.
But when we raise our frequency, we say, hey, I'm part of this experiment. That's the gift of innovation.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because Richard Rudd discusses in this one how um, in studying life at a multicellular or unicellular level, we noticed that there was a nucleus to each cell. And because of our predisposition, we thought, oh, yeah, see, the cell is what controls everything. But what science is more and more discovering is that the brain of the cell isn't in the nucleus. The brain of the cell is actually in the membrane on the outside.
I thought it
So
was. Go ahead.
it's in and of course the membrane is what connects us to the larger environment. It is not protected or isolated within the center. The
Mm-hmm.
brain is actually at the edges. And
Mm-hmm.
so what it really shows is that life is not competitive, but cooperative.
Mm-hmm. Well, I thought it was interesting because they just said something the other day that every day we have like billions of cells that are brand new in our body that our body produces. And
Mm-hmm.
what are we programming them with? So if we're getting up in the morning and we're still rehashing the past and, complaining and all of those things, then those new cells take on that programming. But the way
Mm.
to shift and change is when you get up in the morning is to start programming those cells with what you want it to be. Right. So that was
Yes,
quite interesting. Mm-hmm.
that is really interesting. So when we're in the energy of innovation, then we become aware that there's an opening, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, through play, through synthesizing, through interacting and trusting that what the other elements of life that we come into contact with,
Mm-hmm.
that there can be a synergy there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as children, we are always awed by children because we see how life responds to that energy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everyone, a child being in their natural beauty and innocence, the world around them, the world of the adults responds to that with, magic happens.
Mm-hmm.
But we also are amazed by how they let themselves be mutated. Children are all constantly growing.
Mm-hmm.
So that model, watching children is kind of a model for how we could all be, that
Mm-hmm.
pliability and that interactivity.
Well, that is evolution, right? We're watching the child evolve. It's just that we can see it more in children than we can in ourselves sometimes, right?
Yes. Children
So,
allow themselves to be mutated even as they mutate. They're both a
mhm,
participant and an agent. And that's what innovation is.
mhm,
We can play in this chaos. It doesn't
mhm,
need to feel that way, the way
mhm,
it does for us at the level of chaos. And
mhm,
then at the level of innocence, which is the city, we realize that we're all a part of the experiment of life.
mhm.
We're an instrument and we're also an experiment. And um,
Kind of sounds like God. So, God works through us, but yet he experiences life through us, or
I
life is
think
experiencing itself, right?
I
Hmm.
like how you put that.
Yeah.
I think there's a Persian word, I think, the Sufis use a lot. I think it's called lila.
Hmm.
And that's sort of their equivalent of the word Maya, which is illusion, but lila means play. We are all embedded within this cosmic play,
Hmm. Yeah.
and that play never ends.
So we should
So
move on to the next gene key so we have time to finish this one. So
let's
the
do
next
it.
one is 27. So can you tell us a little bit about 27 and what its role is?
It is also in the sacral center, and it is a journey from selfishness to selflessness via the way of altruism. And again, this is very at the heart of how we experience life. At the level of selfishness, we get caught up in this fear that we won't have enough.
Mm-hmm.
There's a built-in law that to give is to receive, but at the level of the shadow of selfishness, we feel that we have to hold on to things, food and money and resources. There's not enough to go around.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Selfishness causes the devolution, the opposite of evolution. It breaks things down because we cut ourselves off from things. We cut ourselves off from our own vitality.
Mm-hmm.
We cut ourselves off from the art, the collective. And
Mm-hmm.
then we are not nourished and we wonder why.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not nourished. I'm malnourished. I need to grab on even harder. I need to be even more selfish.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very paradoxical. We think, okay, I need something. I'm not being nourished. And so I'm going to hold on and be even more selfish. And then you become even more malnourished. Because to be truly nourished means to be part of that giving and receiving. And at the level of the gift, the level of the altruism, giving from the heart, we become aware that that is what heals us.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's this gene key really points to the importance of the first 7 years of a child's life, the
Mm-hmm.
need to be properly nurtured and properly parented. If they do that, then they are not they rise out of, or they're not they know what it means to be altruistic. They know what it
Mm-hmm.
means to give because they've been properly nourished.
Yeah, instead of it being an exchange where, I
Yeah.
gave to you, so you need to give to me. It's like I give because I love to give and I can in this instance. But then you get a whole case of boundaries in there right after. It's like there still has to be boundaries, right? Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, there's some really deep conversations that can arise out of
Mm-hmm.
this. Because
Yeah.
at the gift level and at the city level of the 27, this is all about um, this beautiful sense of nourishment that
Mm-hmm.
is available to all of us. At the level of selflessness, which is the city, there's such a deep yearning for harmony at this level that miraculous healing can come out of this. We have a yearning to provide for others who are in need. So there's this sense that I do not want anybody in the world to not be nourished.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not afraid that in nourishing them, I will be less than nourished. In fact, I will be part of, engaging in the great banquet of life by offering things to other people is only going to enrich me
Mm-hmm.
and enrich them. And there's no need to hold back from that enrichment. I mean, the topic of boundaries, that's a deep one. I'm not sure
Mm-hmm.
where to go with that, but I mean, I would want
Yeah.
to go there.
Well, I mean, it's not
Um,
giving until it's not like trusting so much that you do things to your detriment. It's about being selfless, right? And giving and trusting life to provide for you.
yeah, I mean, the giving that comes at the overgiving that some of us engage with, the
Mhm.
self-sacrificing, is often, that is sort of one of the dynamics of the shadow. You either are
Mhm.
self-sacrificing or you're self-centered.
Mhm.
So when you're giving without boundaries, that is not the vibration of the gift or city.
Yeah.
There's a subtle fear in there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, all that
So
guilt and shame and don't give, then I feel selfish and I should give. And you know what I mean? There's a lot instead of just letting it flow and say, this is natural. This person needs this, so I'm going to give it to them. And I release the outcome, right? So,
Yes,
mhm.
yes. It's all about the vibration from which we're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point that you raised there. Um, Sometimes we can get confused about what level we're at, or
Mhm.
we can think that we're doing the right thing, but there's subtle contraction in it because we're actually doing it looks good, but really it's arising from a fear and distrust level.
Yeah. Okay. So, Jennifer was asking a question earlier, and by the time it came through, we had moved on to another subject. So I'm not sure what it's in regards to, if you can address it, but it was back when we were talking about the first gene key, 42, and
Yeah.
we were talking, and she says, hold on, yet isn't that attachment? And I'm not sure if you can put two and two together and address that, or if we just have to apologize and move on, because I'm not sure what it's in regards to now.
Um, well, I mean, we were talking about expectation,
Mm-hmm.
and we talked about at the level of the gift, it's detachment.
Mm-hmm.
So, another word for expectation
Mm-hmm.
might it be attachment,
Mm-hmm.
so to kind of then make it obvious that the shadow is attachment,
Mm-hmm.
expectation, attachment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you could see those as relatively synonymous. And then at the level of the gift, it becomes non-attachment or detachment.
Okay, well, thank you. So is there anything you want to tell us as we wrap up, and then let us know what's up for next week?
Next week is 24, 23, and 20. Um, these come out of the solar plexus and go to other areas. So it'll be interesting to see what arises from that. But I think what's arising for me right now is just a reminder to all of us to be compassionate towards ourselves in this
Mm-hmm.
journey, um, and to release yourself continuously, because you'll have to do it more than once, from judging yourself, from being in the shadow sides of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, there is an intrinsic link between all of the shadows and all the gifts and all the cities. And so your empowerment arises from embracing your own suffering. And it's through your suffering that we are gradually ushered into a greater trust for life, and our vibration and our frequency rises.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Okay, with that, we're going to say so long, and we'll see you guys next week. Hope you enjoyed the broadcast. If you ever want to dive deeper into your own charts, we're always here. You can give us a call, and Har will be happy to do a session with you. So, with that, God bless. So long. We'll see you next Wednesday.